Yeah, and I think that's a great segue to the event I was at. So I was at something called HDI SupportWorld, sort of the other end of the spectrum. It's if you're not familiar with it, HDI used to stand for the Help Desk Institute, and so this is a conference for people that run IT support desks, IT service desks. It's been around forever. It is frankly a shadow of its former self. The number I heard was there are about a total of 900 attendees. This event used to have 3,000 or 4,000. Going back a decade, I used to go to this event periodically, more focused on the service management side. But it was interesting seeing it. And you talk about, I'm not sure what you just said, innovate or die, or change or die. And I I think that as an industry, this whole space, support IT service management, has been struggling. And so I was actually talking to a good friend of mine who was also at the event. He's the head of AR for Freshworks by the name of Ken Gonzalez. He was a former Gartner analyst, and we were talking about it. And he said the words ITSM is dead, and that launched this entire sort of debate. And I come from the service management space, and so we had this whole debate. I ended up writing a blog post, sort of conveying our conversation. I said, ITSM as we know it is dead, which is a reference to the opening line of my first book 12 years ago that said, IT as we know it is dead.
Hmm.
And I kind of laid out this whole point. And my message really was that ITSM has lost any strategic relevance within the enterprise. That when I talk to executives, nobody's bringing up ITSM. When you and I hold this podcast, we haven't brought up ITSM. I don't think maybe once, except talking about
Hmm.
ServiceNow, right? That it just has lost the strategic relevance. And what was fascinating about it is it just kicked off this firestorm. It's had 12,000 views. It had about a whole bunch of reposts and 10 comments. And but what's probably most striking is that they were all the consultants and not even the tool players for the most part, because most of the tool players have realized this and are moving into other adjacent spaces or trying to focus
Hmm.
on other elements, sort of following the ServiceNow playbook. But it was all the training companies, the consultants that were like, no, it's not. You're an idiot, And it was just sort of it was just sort of fascinating. But going back to your statement that it's about changing and keeping up with what's new and relevant or dying, that so much of the space is just clearly dying. It's just not keeping pace, not recognizing that the world and the nature of how we execute the function of IT is changing. And I think the last little piece, and then I'll be quiet about this, was I did a follow-up post on my Substack for the DX report that talked about the fact that this is really more than just about ITSM. It's really about frameworks. I think DevOps
Hmm.
is on the same path. I think any framework in the world of IT just runs this risk of becoming this dogmatic set of principles that people lose sight of the outcomes we're trying to deliver with them and get focused on the framework itself, and that just gets us all screwed up. So going all the way back to what you're saying about Tableau, I think BI has sort of also fallen into that, had historically fallen into that trap. And I
Hmm.
think what is interesting is AI has sort of been this lifeline, in my opinion, because it is so elevated the prominence and importance of data provenance, of all the entire data lifecycle, all of it, that suddenly it's getting a lot of eyes on it, and it's forcing people to realize that they need to put this new attention on it. So I'm hoping something similar happens with ITSM, but I guess we'll have to see how that one plays out.
Yeah, I find ITSM interesting in that, of course, we've had these rules-based top-down governance frameworks for such a long time for service management that are starting to fall apart under their own weight. But at the same time, the actual automation of IT service orders has never been more important to
Exactly.
make IT work quickly and efficiently. We're increasingly dependent on intelligent IT service management in the general term, the actual dictionary definitions of those words. But the tools that we have right now just don't follow suit very well because they're not flexible enough to actually manage the service orders in a way, or to automate them, or to provide the level of configuration that we're looking for that actually makes IT run quickly. We end up needing intermediaries that are able to actually manage cloud resources or to handle containerization, handle all the virtual machines, all the infrastructure challenges that currently exist, as well as the related governance and security and configuration issues that are out there. It's just that ITSM hasn't been able to keep up. I don't think it's that we don't need ITSM. It's just that the ITSM tools and triggers and that we have in place just don't feel like they are up to the task.
Well, and that was some of the commentary that I got, is that, whether it exists or not, we have to do these functions. And of course that's true, right? And that was sort of my ending point, was that I'm lamenting it because this is a critical function, right? The ability to execute the IT function is absolutely essential to the enterprise, and it is dependent on your ability to operate efficiently and effectively. My point really is that it's not about this dogmatic arguments and debates over what does this term mean or that term mean. It's about how do we actually deconstruct the executional processes that we need to run, and then deliver them and automate them
Mm-hmm.
as quickly as possible. And what you tend to find when I talk to enterprise IT leaders that are doing this well, it's like they understand the broad-based principles and then they sort of ignore the frameworks,
Right.
in terms of, from a dogmatic standpoint, because it ends up distracting them, right? They
Mm-hmm.
focus on delivering, what they need to deliver. So I think it's an interesting time. I'm largely encouraged by the tool landscape, the vendor landscape, as far as I think the vendors understand this and are moving in the right directions. I think it's frankly a lot of the IT adherents, the folks that have to sort of figure this out. So, we'll
Yeah.
see where that plays out. But